All right, I'd like to call a meeting to order. Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Don Bonafide, can you hear us okay?
Yeah, I can hear you fine.
Thank you. All right. I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda for today's meeting. All right. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving the agenda for today's meeting, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? The agenda is approved. One thing, as I ask every meeting, Bob has beat me to the punch. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate it. And thank you, Randy, for putting the minutes together from the last time. So we have a scribe for today's minute. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the May 26th meeting. All right, is there a second? Second. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of approval of the minutes for the May 26th meeting, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Those minutes are approved. Next item on our agenda is public comments. There's no one here in the room. So I think we will move forward with closing the floor for public comments. Next item on our agenda is a review and discussion of the May 2025 monthly financials. And as we do in each meeting, and I think the format has been working reasonably well, this we will just go from the top all the way through. So page one noted that, we were positive operating balance of 18,536. I don't know if there's any issues or questions there. Next item is the operating account summary. That's pretty straightforward. Although I do have a kind of a simplistic question. The idea of the fact that the budget on assessments was 8.40 million, and the actual was 8.42. And I know it's a mixture of funds that were received before the May 1st, and I know John and I have had a discussion about that. It's very hard to differentiate the money when it gets deposited. It shows up on the on the bank statement as a deposit and in cash, yet it's applicable to the next fiscal year. So I don't know. I think that's just going to something and it's been that way forever. Yeah. So it's just a matter of, if anybody ever asks the question, well, what's the difference there? It's because, the way the cash is received and deposited prior to the beginning of the new fiscal year.
Late fees?
Oh, I suspect there could be late fees applied to that as well. Not just assessments, as the other information is late fees, collections, things like that. Liens that might have been processed on the sale of property. All right, any other questions on the operating account summary? Pretty straightforward. All right, the next page is the operating results. Any questions, comments, concerns on that? Well, as usual, I've never been one to shy away from comment. On op results, if you look at, on the expenditure side, under public works, you see a services and supplies expense of 21,364. Now, granted, that's not an issue. I just would want to make sure that that's just kind of the beginning of the year, catching up with supplies, things that they wanted to get done, or just things that they got started. So it's not an issue. It's just a matter of, it's against budget. It's the expense wasn't there, which again, it's no big deal. Just, there's reasons for that. The other one I wanted to bring up was under racket sports. You look at 47K, worth of membership. And although when we get down into I noticed an interesting thing when we get down into the into the report for the racket sports, and I'll wait till we get down there. So that was noted. And then I noticed that on the positive side, if you look at the combined golf ops, it's 30K to the good, better than budget at this point in time. So I think that's, and I like to believe that's a trend that's going to continue. And then the other one I had was, under aquatics, if you look, there's an 18K, revenue bump, which is good, which means that as the programs and things that are going on at the pools seem to be working, and I think it's a combination, having looked through the, through the detail page on it, it looks like it's a combination of, daily drop-ins, people that have had, bought pool memberships, and it's another good thing. So any other questions on the operating results page?
The maintenance issue, the variance there, is that timing? It's 32% difference.
Yeah, and that's what I was trying to say, said it, I guess, a little more elegantly. It's timing. I think it's things that we're probably getting ready to get started and so on and so forth. And, I never really worry too much about a variance like this at the beginning of the year, because things tend to, over time, tend to take care of themselves. You might want to say, well, I moved the project forward, even though I've accounted for it in month 4, I'm going to move it ahead because I've got labor available, I've got materials available, and, from a priority perspective, I'll change it. So from an operations perspective, they'll take that spend and they'll do it in the first month rather than the 4th month. So at the end of the 4th month, it should be at net zero, right?
Right.
So, but yeah, it's clearly a timing issue, and John and his team have noted that and have educated us on that on a number of occasions. The fact that it is usually a timing issue where you book something, especially on the revenue side, and even on the expense side as well. All right, any other questions on the operating results page? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to the next page, and that is net operations by department. All right, as I say every meeting, I don't want to be the only one that talks. Okay.
Yeah, I have a question.
All right, good. Now we're.
Built that thing, and then you get later to the membership, it's down 24%. Something's coming.
So in net ops, you're looking at the racket sports, and you see a 41K negative variance from budget. But I will also point out in my notes is that if you look at the year to date from last year at this time, we're only down 4,000. Right, so that, if you look at it, now, granted, it looks like they budgeted a lot more, but, the month was 106. The month actuals for the month was 106. And if you look at the year-to-date budget from last year, it's 102. So
I was just looking at it.
Yeah. Yeah, true. But I mean, again, if people really, those that are interested really take a look at it. It's the idea of, if you compare it only against what was budgeted, it looks like a big number, a big deficit. But if you look at the numbers from last year at this time, it's only a 4K. Now, granted, the membership is down, but for those who tend to, I don't use the word overreact, but maybe misinterpret it in such a way that we're losing all kinds of money. The idea is it's trending pretty much the same way it did last year at this point in time. Okay. Now, what should be interesting is as we go forward, let's say after the summer season, let's get into the September timeframe, and look and see what that number looks like at that point, because hopefully the drop-ins may have changed. But anyway, the point is noted, and I think it's in a direct reflection of the change in the fee structure. But that's it's like anything, it could end up being adapted, and people adapt to the way things change. All right, anything else on net operating by department? I have one more. This is going to be a question to John and his team under food and beverage. The food and beverage line obviously clearly has some activity from the May timeframe. So the question would be, how does this relate to the new contractual arrangement that we have with Touch of Italy? Okay, so these numbers are here. You've got comparisons from last year, but we were under a different contractual structure than we are now. So, somebody leaking? Oh, okay. So, it's just basically a question, to John and his team. What is this relaying to us? Bob?
My question was, they thought it was budgeted to cover the rent, and then anything else, the percentage of the food profits would be added to it. So why would it be a shortfall in the first month of the year?
Yeah, and so that's
Pay the rent.
Yeah, point taken. The idea is like I don't know that this has a correlation to the operating environment that we have right now. So that's my question. It's like, these numbers, like, the numbers don't bother me. It's just like, well, what do they represent is really where I come from.
It's my thought.
Monica, I will suspend Robert's Rules of Order. You may join the conversation.
Thank you. I think also too, when do we pay out Matt? The rest of the Ort contract? Was that related to here?
That, the last time we looked at, the answer is, I don't know. I thought it was taken care
I
of
do too, but I'm
Yeah.
wondering like.
in April.
Right.
You know, that would have shown up as an expense in the April
Right.
timeframe, but, you know, again, maybe that's a possibility that we could find. And again, that's hence the question to John and the team saying, you know, how are we treating this information? What is it relevant to?
First month of the year, that's always a problem.
Yeah, you're always gonna get the, spillover from the previous fiscal
Some
year,
variance.
timing, as you alluded to. All right, I'm gonna reinstate Robert's rules. Any other questions on net ops by department, folks? Okay. Next page is the operating summary. Bob,
No, I'm, okay, I'm waiting. Computer went.
oh,
I'm okay.
all right, my only note here was that the 19K expenses are greater than the budget, but it's the beginning of the year. Again, timing, spillover from previous ongoing activities from the previous fiscal year, so on and so forth, not a big deal. Okay, any other on op summary? No other questions on that?
No.
All right, next item is racket sports. Bob,
First of all, membership dues, 28% there is that timing, or have we lost some members with the packaging?
good question. I think it's not out of the question to say that it's probably due to the change in the rate structure. You know, some people have chosen not to, and for various good reasons. Other people have said, well, you know, I'm not playing this one and this one, so why would I pay for it? You know, that's very reasonable. We respect that decision and them not doing it. You know, so my note here was that if you remember in previous reports, we got 3 reports: tennis, platform, pickleball. This is one report here. So my question, and I'm going to send it to John, assuming you guys agree, is that going to be the trend going forward? We're just going to get a combined, you know, because I think it's important for us to at least understand if there's anything happening in tennis, pickleball, and platform that would be, you know, something that might contribute for consideration in next year's budget, you know, that we look at.
You know, is there any reason that that report was eliminated?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, and, you know, unless you guys have an issue with that one, I'm going to send another question to John and his team saying, is this and again, not a problem. I just need to know, is this going to be the format going forward? And, you know, look at it as a combination of racket sports rather than individual racket sports. All right. Any other questions on racket sports? All right. Next item is aquatics. Nothing here. My note was, member dues are ahead of budget. It's a good first month. So, and again, my tendency to compare to last year, we're, you know, right where we need to be. All right, seeing nothing else on aquatics. Combined golf operations. Oh, okay. My only note here was that we're 25K on net ops, better than we were at this time last year. I don't know, again, is that a trend? You know, clearly there's been a good source of revenue on the golf side. And, at one point you hit a threshold now.
There were some fee
Right.
increases. Membership fees were up from what they were last year.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I paid that, yeah, a little bit. I pay family that because Stevie's paid, so
I know.
pay for it all. But I'm glad.
Yeah, I know that in our discussion with the golf advisor, we discussed that with Bob. And he was looking at a 3 or 4 year plan, raising a little bit each year
Yeah.
over the next few years.
And this is somewhat in context. Did you know how the Ocean Pines was considered a very good value package play when it's advertised with Golf Now or Pam's, whatever it is. Is he talking about upping a little bit on the package play as
We
well?
did mention that because we are significantly lower
Yeah,
than all of the big courses
Yeah,
around here.
yeah.
Run Point,
Lighthouse Sound, yeah.
those courses, we're significantly lower than those. So, talking about moving us to become more competitive with the as far as rates.
Okay, all right. Well,
But
good.
that would definitely show an increase in, revenue compared to last year's.
Yeah, and it's gonna be interesting to watch to see if that trend, at least I'm interested in the fact that is the trend going to continue? Because we've had this kind of sort of organic growth, but at some point, you know, based on the amount of hours in a day, the amount of rounds golfers you can put out there, you've got to be able to, or you've got to hit a threshold, you know? And the question would be, you know, how close are we to that threshold? Will we have, and you know what, even if we don't hit the threshold, from an operational environment on the revenue perspective, we're doing quite well. So, you know, it's not really an issue.
Yeah, you look at the year to date this year compared to last year, we're up quite a bit.
Yeah, yeah. All right, anything else on combined golf operations? All right. The one thing that I, again, didn't see in this report that's changed from the last one is we used to get one for golf maintenance, separate report for golf maintenance that we didn't get this time. And so again, is that going to be a trend? Is that something that, you know, again, it's operational, so it's not that, you know, tremendously important, but if you look at the overall picture, I mean, if we're looking at, you know, revenue expenses, you know, as compared to budget, do we need to, I would think we need to include that as well.
Where is that included? Is that included?
I didn't-
Expense in one line. item?
Yeah, you know, in other words, you know, it's, you know, the services and supplies, maintenance and utilities, and then other costs. Well, you know, none of them are really out of line with anything,
No.
you know, so if you look, especially comparing it to last year, they're right in line. So the question would be, you know, where is the where are the maintenance costs for golf? And, you know, so we'll definitely, you know,
How do they handle the accounting for the utilities and things between the golf course and Touch of Italy? And over at the clubhouse? If clubhouse closed, right?
mhm.
Now, Touch of Italy is responsible for part of that, for their operation. How does that separate from what's charged to golf?
I don't know the detail. I would have to refer to the contract. You know, and again, I know that's all been worked out. The question would be, you know, again, one of the approaches would be, why do I care? You know, the idea of if their contract is all encompassing of the operation, okay, you know, then the terms and conditions of the contract will dictate what happens, you know, in little nuances where, you know, is that, since it's part of the building, part of our asset base and therefore we're responsible for it? Or is it included, was written as a term and condition in the contract to say they'll take care of covering the incidental costs for those kinds of things? You know, I think that, and that goes back to, and unfortunately we didn't get the questions to John, but I think that's going to come out as, you know, what would we as a committee, obviously as Ocean Funds expect on a financial report with regard to the integration of touchability with our food and beverage operations. So. Okay, anything else on combined golf ops? Okay. Next item is beach parking. All right. I know it's a slow start, but it's only 5K less than this same time last year.
This time,
And so yeah, you know, if, you know, we're looking at, you know, $410,000 and, you know, a $5,000 variance is not a high percentage that would raise any red flags. So, okay, yeah, look at the expenses, how they're down $1,000, so, you know. All right, anything else on beach parking? All right, next item is the marinas. Bob,
fuel sales are off. That part I understand, because it's beginning of the season. Fuel costs are significantly up to 8.4% above budget.
yeah,
So if you're not selling it, unless the tanks were empty when we started at the beginning of this year,
mhm.
which they should be probably, gas setting all winter. would be a good thing. I don't know if it's, I'm just a little concerned.
Yeah, you know, that's an interesting call because fuel costs obviously fluctuate over the operating year, right? You know, you might pay X amount of dollars per gallon when you filled it up at the beginning of the season. And I don't really know how long a full tank lasts. Does it last a month based on, you know, the number of people that visit the marina? Does it last 9 weeks? You know, and at the end of the day, you know, of course, that next purchase and any subsequent purchase, you know, unless you're contractually, you know,
It's your question.
oh, okay. Okay, even better. You guys get that? All right. Hey, Don, that was, Ruth Ann. John will be joining us in a couple of minutes to answer the questions, that we submitted from last month. All right, anyway, so we're talking about marinas and the gas prices and everything. All right, I'll suspend Robert's rules. Monica, you may join the
Sorry.
conversation.
Just, remember how wet the spring was too and all. I mean, the winds, the weather was terrible. So where I would have been out much earlier on my jet ski than I have been, you know, I think the weather has played into that a little bit also.
Okay, restating Robert's rules. Next item I had, it's, you know, same thing both of you said. It was the, you know, revenues are down 10K from budget, but it's probably due to the weather. We had a lot of rain here in the past month. But if you look, the net ops, you know, for this family was 25K better than it was last year,
Exactly.
which kind of like, it's like to your point about the fuel costs. Okay, I mean, they're obviously selling some of the fuel, you know, at that higher cost, which hopefully offset the thing, but you know, they're doing well. Anything else on marinas? All right. Next item is reserves. My issue is, there's no issue at this time. It's too early in the fiscal year to tell. The capital spend and the spend out of reserve funding, you know, will be defined as the year moves forward. So, you know. All right. Next item is the capital summary. Questions on that one?
Put down roads, you find it further.
Yeah, and you are going to say. Well,
Well, there, total roads, year-to-date actual versus budget of 35,000.
Yeah. right. Yeah, on the same note, I said the roads were over budget by 112K. You know, and the question would be, you know, was there a specific incident that happened that required it? Was it timing? You know, where something got, you know, again, labor and materials was made available, therefore to take advantage of it, they moved it up, you know, in the schedule. But, you know, 112K, yeah, that's not the 5K we talked about earlier. That's enough to at least, you know, pose a question. And the idea is like, you know, and again, that's one that I'll send to John and his team, you know, as an outcome of this meeting. All right. Anything else on capital expenses? Please, Randy.
Who managed?
Manages what? Well,
Is it each individual department?
so from my perspective, when you look at the budget, okay, that was passed, as part of that budget submission, you look at all the planned capital expenses for that year. Okay, it comes in as that, you know, if you look at the end of the report, you see these are all the capital expenses. Now, from a board perspective, having been on the board for a long time, we are authorizing that spend, but we're not authorizing when to spend it, other than within the fiscal year. So it's turned over to operations, and it's an operational decision to decide when a certain purchase, you know, is applicable, when it makes sense, you know. And matter of fact, there's been times when I can remember years ago where, you know, a capital expense was approved and it didn't happen, you know. So, you know, that's, again, you just push it down to the operation side and says, you know, here's your funds, manage it as you see fit. Other questions about capital expenses? All right. Seeing none. The cash and investments, pretty self-explanatory. 20 million. I'm sure the treasurer will tell us at the next meeting what all that means, so I'll refrain from any comment at this time. Oh, she happens to be right here.
Oh,
No, all looking good, pretty standard there. And, the membership report.
Yeah.
I think is, again, here's where it spells out. And again, the target here is racket sports. You can see the big
yeah.
difference, in the memberships. And the question is, will that self-regulate over the fiscal year? Or is that going to be, kind of where we end up with a, what is this, some percentage decline of, memberships? It should be interesting to see how that evolves over the fiscal year. Randy?
My question would be, at what point is there some sort of evaluation of the rate structure, what's the right decision?
Yeah, and I think that's part of it.
6 months?
Yeah, I think you have sort of three entities involved in that. One would be us, one would be operations, and one would be the board. I think all three entities have a responsibility to look at that, as part of the budget preparation process going forward. The board, and we supported the change in the rate structure. And the question is, you do the analysis. Did it yield the results you were expecting? And let the real-time data, the data that happens over the course of that fiscal year dictate whether or not what you proposed, what you approved, made sense from a financial perspective. At the end of the day, because again, there's also a lot of residual effect. In other words, if it's, how does a reduction in membership affect staffing? How much does a reduction in membership, translate into court time for those who did apply? In other words, wow, now that there's fewer members, I don't have to wait till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I can play at 11 in the morning, or something along those lines. So as part of an analysis, I would fully expect that operations is looking at all aspects of that, and then we'll come with a recommendation, an analysis that they've done and a recommendation on whether or not to continue with or make any adjustments. It's that simple.
That's after a full year.
I think you have to have enough data to collect. You want to stay away from anomalies, you want to stay away from sort of that, initial knee-jerk reaction to things.
Question I would have is, if racket is down, how much of it is on the bocce courts that we just saw? People just switching over because it takes less activity to do the other and it's still good exercise.
Well, so that would be an interesting, in my opinion, an interesting statistic. In other words, you'd have to go up and query everybody that's playing bocce now and say, are you doing bocce instead of tennis or instead of pickleball? And, I don't know. I've not associated bocce with anything having to do with the racket sports. I mean, you could do that with swimming. Well, no, I'm not going to swim because I'm going to play bocce instead. I mean, you could do that with, I'm not going to golf because I want to play bocce instead. I mean, you could do that with any amenity,
Is that going to appear as a revenue generation later, or is that going to be a freebie?
Well, no, you pay you pay to play bocce. My wife plays in that league, and there's a fee associated with it. I think Mike Galero there's like 100 people that are signed up for bocce.
Where is that in the financial reports?
I don't think it's hit the financials yet, and unless John deems it necessary to have it as a separate item, I would think he'd fold that into other costs as other things have. Where there's again, me, I like high level stuff, and it's almost to the point where you get down into too much detail. Well, I broke it down. When you can break it down into three major functions, three major pieces versus breaking it down into 27. I mean, it's like, that's too much detail. Here, give me this number right here. But I'll ask, let's find out. So where's
Might be
bocce?
interesting, where the bocce revenue makes up for part of what we lost in racket. I mean, just look at it that way. But if you bury it, you can't see it.
Okay, I'll add that to our list of questions. All right. Anything else on the membership report? All right, and my last comment here is there's no balance sheet on this report. where's the balance sheet? So that's a question that we'll have to pose to the finance team. Where is balance sheet? Because that also shows quite a bit of interesting information if you really dig deep into the into the aspects of the budget, the operational. Okay, so that covers all of the items that we had on our agenda item for review and discussion of the monthly financials. Next item on the agenda is report on the questions answered by the finance team. Unfortunately, we were not able to get there's no blame. It's there. It happened. And the questions have been submitted from last month. And I got assurances that they'll get them. And I told her I wouldn't expect them based on the timing of when we submitted that. Plus, on top of that, Steve Phillips is still out, which I think puts a big burden on them to try to be as quick as possible to get that stuff. So we will postpone that, and the idea of we'll report on it at the July meeting. All right, so we'll have basically two sets of questions. One from, and we'll differentiate them when we have the meeting. Was from the the May meeting, which was end of fiscal year,
Right.
and then the second one would be obviously from this meeting.
So if we get the answers to last month's question,
Uh-huh.
should I include them in the minutes of the meeting if they get?
Please,
Okay.
please
That was
do.
my question.
Yeah. All right, around the room for the good of the order. Bob,
Nothing else.
Randy,
Just a
Frank.
question going back, all the way back to, the net operating screen.
okay,
We were talking about food and beverage and the, month actual you had there 45,380.
right,
If you multiply that by 12, that comes out to 540. Now, our yearly payment from that
income
was
from the rent,
like
for the lease.
380.
384, I believe. it was.
384, yeah, that's what I thought too. Would there be a correlation between, say, that 45 is a part of that 384 divided by 12?
Yeah.
That's.
Good question. In other words, it goes back to what we talked about earlier.
Right.
What's the relevance of this information? What does it correlate to?
Yeah, so, it's. Then the other things that could be in there might also be their portion of the utilities and so forth.
Mhm.
So just the question as to what makes up that 45, 380 number.
Okay,
A portion of that plus any other contractual obligations that they don't even have to Ocean Pines.
Right.
Broken down into a monthly number as opposed to
it's an
a
annual.
yearly
Okay,
type.
all right, I will add that to our explicit questions. Like always doing this for the people that are watching. So, when we're done the meeting, I usually tally all the questions up and I send it out to the committee. Everybody takes a look and says, yeah, it's good. No, add this or blah, blah, blah. And then it goes out. So I will add that to the list of questions that we create out of this meeting and for everybody to take a look at. Don Bonafide, anything to add?
No, I'm good. I see
Okay.
John's on though.
Okay, well, I'm about ready to call for adjournment. So, I think what we'll do. Yeah. John, did you want to answer any questions that we did, or, it's not important, that you have to do it right now. We can certainly, wait until, you get the answers for the other ones, or it's up to you. Please let me know. What's your preference?
Yeah, I mean, I move stuff so I can get in there. I know this is important to all of you. I'll try to answer them. I looked at it quick. I certainly think I can give you plenty of detail. I know, I just got the questions, as you know. So.
Okay, yeah, I know. That's what I just told everybody.
No, I appreciate it. No, I got a lot of other stuff going on the next week, so let's do it. I could do it.
Okay. All right, so why don't we do this? I'd rather have John, when he gets in his copious free time, give us the answers in detail. There's no urgency in getting it right now. So, we'll wait. And then John, what we'll do is, as Bob mentioned, we'll just include those as part of the minutes for this meeting that'll get in the subsequent meeting. So.
All right. I think I just said I would do it now, but whatever you all want, because I got plenty. Okay. All righty. Whatever you want.
Sounds good. All right. All right. Well, that being said, we've been through the agenda, so I will entertain a motion for adjournment. Motion. All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? All right. All right, motion is, or the meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everyone.